Hey Tyrell, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. If people don't know, Tyrell's been a part of Handball now since 2007, about
Yeah, yeah, about that. Great match
2007.
that was.
A long journey, and now he's president of Alberta Team Handball Federation. So, Tyrell, if you can maybe just start off like how you got involved in handball, where you started, a little bit about your background with handball.
Well, I started in grade eight because my two best friends at the time told me all about it. They're like, "It's the greatest sport. You have to try it. These big fat guys can shoot so hard." And so I don't know. At that age, I played every sport. So I gave it a shot. I went to tryouts, and you were our first
Yeah,
coach. And yeah, since that, that was I loved it, and I kept playing.
so you kept on. You played, I think, 2 years of junior high school, 3 years.
2 years. I started in grade eight,
Yeah.
and then I played grade nine, and then at the end of the grade nine season, I was approached to play on a development team.
Okay, and that was to go to Europe, correct?
It was supposed to be Brazil again, but then enough people didn't register, so I got pushed up to the elite team.
Okay, and where was your first trip?
France, Spain, Sweden.
Oh, you were on the infamous trip. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the first ones. So then that's when you really probably started getting involved more heavily into handball around 2009, 10.
Mm. No, 2010 is when I graduated, and by that time I was all in. It
Yeah.
was probably going into grade 11 when I decided to seriously commit to handball.
Okay. And what were some of the other big sports you were playing at that time?
I was playing football, just at Shep. I mean, at that time, Shep was good at football. It's a
Yeah,
different story now.
yeah.
And then I also played basketball. So I think at the time I was invited to play Team Alberta handball. I was also invited to play Team Alberta basketball. My parents were like, "Well, pick one."
So yeah. I remember, I think it was your grade 12 year. I got a phone call from you. This is when I knew handball was in your futures. I got a phone call from you, I think, on the way home from playoffs football when you played Raymond. And you called me and said, Mike, I just think I played on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that.
I think that's the last time you might have played football.
Yeah, that was my last football game. That was grade 12 provincials quarterfinals, and we lost 63 nothing,
Yeah, that was crazy.
which is
Uh,
crazy because we lost cities by a field goal by 2 points. So
Raymond's pretty strong in football, and yeah, they're not. They're still super good. So then you played through high school. Do you remember a lot about your high school handball career at all? Like how our season was back then and things like that.
yeah, so I remember grade 10 and grade 11. It was hosted by ATHF.
Yeah,
When I was in grade 12, it was the first ASAA year. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so you could just see the difference in the kind of tournament styles. Like when it was hosted by you and ATHF, it was you had MVPs and first round All Stars, and it was very more handball. And then once it went ASAA, it was kind of a mix between it was the sport of handball, but run very like Alberta like.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I still have. I don't know when's the last time, but the craziness of back then is like I remember the finals. You guys played Beth-Facey. I still have it on DVD. But the professionalism of our sport back then was like you both teams had the same color jerseys, so you guys had one. I think it was your team had to wear pennies or
Yeah, that's
in the
right.
finals or provincial. So it's crazy where we've come from back then. But even watching the game, yeah, the level has certainly changed.
Yeah.
Uh, Going forward, you ended up being playing more years of Alberta, and then I remember. I think you were going, a couple of years out of high school. I sat you down in the summertime, and I said, "I think it's time for you to go try to go play in Europe." You were the first guy from Alberta to go to the Handball Academy in Aarhus. A little bit of your experience there and what you accomplished.
In terms of handball, it was great. I mean, I was practicing twice a week with my club team in the third division. Then I was practicing 4 times a week with the school, working out 2 to 3 times a week. And then I would go to shoot whenever I wanted. And that was just the first semester. After Christmas is when handball really took off for me. I was invited to try out with the top division team. I mean, it was mid-season, so after that practice, I think I shot 6 for 7. I threw a couple good fast break passes. I had a no look thrown between my legs. But after that, the coach, he said, if you want to keep practicing with us, you practice with us. You don't call me, you just show up. He's like, I would love to have you here. You come as much as you want. So from that point on, whenever I didn't have practice with my own club team, that's where I was.
What happened with that?
It's Denmark. It's visas. I mean, being a 19-year-old without college education, and now you're going from a student visa to a work visa, it's almost impossible.
Okay. Back then, your experience compared to here, what are big differences that you saw from handball in Denmark, from handball in Alberta or Canada?
Um, I think it's just the biggest difference is it's like hockey here or soccer here. You grow up playing that sport. Where here, people start at 15, 16, and then we teach you everything in 3 years. And then after year 4, year 5, people are kind of like, where am I going with this? I don't know. But if it was hockey, they keep playing. And in Denmark, it's the same thing. For them, it's their hockey, right? So it's what they've done since they were 3, 4, 5 years old, and they love it and they keep playing.
Yeah. So then you came home after that year and you decided not to try to go back to Europe. Why was that?
At first, I wanted to go back to Europe. I wanted to try somewhere like France where I could make some money.
Yeah.
But for me, I just never had the money to go do tryouts. And it was that for me, that was the discouraging point where it was for me to be good at this sport. And I know I'm good enough to make a team in France. I have to invest $5,000, $6,000 that I don't have. So after that, it was just time to kind of consider my future and get a job where I could survive to live and kind of had a better future than what my parents had, right? Just kind of grow a little bit there.
It wasn't really a stop for you playing handball. I mean, you were fully committed. You played national team for, I don't know, for 8, 9 years maybe. Because like after you got back, you went to the Worlds in Greece, or was that the same summer as you went?
That was the same summer I went. So after I got back, we went to Mexico. And we finished third, but we should have been in the finals. I mean, we beat every other team but the team that won. So yeah, it was just bad organization, and it was unfortunate. And then after that, we went to Pan Am Championships, but I didn't go again because of money.
So going back, you went with the junior national team to Greece. Uh,
Yes.
how was your qualification process?
First, we went to Venezuela to try and qualify for the Pan Am Championships.
Yeah.
So we're sitting in the locker room before our first game. Roger comes in with a letter and he reads it. And at the end of the letter, it pretty much says, congratulations, you've already qualified because all these other teams dropped out. And so we're all like, we spent $2,000 to come here to qualify, and we're already qualified. But it was okay. It was still, Venezuela was a great time. We played some of their like semi-professional teams and stuff like that. So we got some good handball.
Yeah.
Then we came home a couple of months later. We did a Christmas camp. And then we went to Pan Am Championships in Brazil.
So that didn't matter. Pan Am Championships didn't matter for you to qualify, or was the Venezuela qualifiers for Pan Am Championships?
Venezuela was a qualifier for Pan Am Championships.
Okay. Okay.
To qualify for Worlds, we had to finish top 3 at the Pan Am Championships. So going into that tournament, it's okay. Well, you have Brazil, you have Argentina, and you really have to beat Chile, which we did, and it was awesome. But then we found out Chile also qualified. So out of that tournament, only one team didn't get to go to World Championships. But
And
we're,
wasn't it a team that couldn't qualify anyways?
I don't even remember. It was Puerto Rico.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, for us, it was still great. Like
Yeah.
we beat Chile. We were the first junior team in Canada to qualify for the World Championship, so it was still a really really good experience. I mean, you only lose to Brazil, Argentina, and you beat Chile by 6 or 7 goals. Like we felt like we had accomplished something.
What about then heading off to Greece? How was that experience?
Well, it's interesting. It's nice seeing everyone you play against in Champions League making millions of euros. But then it kind of sucks when you lose like 40 to 20 or 60 to 20. But uh, the atmosphere and the games like that, it's second to none. Right? Like I've never played a game like that at that level since then.
Yeah, yeah. It's again, you have to take the experience and what you learn from it more than some of the results when you play like the Swedish national team, which their pivot is the starting pivot for Veszprem.
Yeah, and then you have the goalie from Spain, who's the starting goalie for Barcelona now. So
Yeah, yeah. So that's not that's quite a it's an experience.
yeah,
You kept on working. You went in and you made the team for Pan Am Games in 2015.
yeah.
How was that experience?
Um, that experience, the whole thing it was tough. I mean, first I was kicked off the team because I didn't have the money to go to a couple camps. Then JF, he met with me and he said, oh, JF is very, he cracks the whip and he said, "Okay, Tyrell, I'm going to let you back, but this is your payment plan. And I still pay all my bills by check. So I don't expect you to be late for any reason." I said, "Oh, okay, I'm in." Yeah, but after that, we traveled 2 or 3 times a year with that team. And it was nice to play with some of the senior players that I had looked up to well before going to play overseas and stuff. And it was again the next step for handball in Canada for me at the time. So it was really good. The camps were good. The coaches was good. They were tough. All the players were very competitive, but it was a very mature team. And then yeah, making that final roster to go to Pan Am Games was like it was nice because I had to work to be on that team.
Yeah, it was a program. It was like a 4-year program, pretty much, since right after Mexico Pan Am Games.
Yeah, exactly.
So I didn't know this. You got kicked off that team?
At the beginning, I didn't like get kicked off, but I think it was I had come home from Denmark and I
Yeah.
had no money. And then we went to senior nationals and they said, "Okay, we're having a camp after and it costs $1,500." And I said, "There's no way I can't afford it." Like I
Okay.
just and they said, "Okay." And then there was another camp in France. Again, it was still like I was in school. Wasn't really working full time. I was working just enough to kind of pay for the handball I was doing, and couldn't go. So then after that, JF kind of sat down with me. I think Dan Devlin was the one who talked to him and said, "Tyrell really does want to play. Just his circumstances." So
Okay. Well, that's fair on JF to listen at least.
yeah,
Yeah. So the experience at Pan Am Games you enjoyed?
I loved it. I mean, for me, I've always wanted to play in the Olympics. The only tattoo I've ever wanted is the Olympic rings, but I mean,
Yeah,
you can't get that unless you go.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was the next best thing, and I loved every minute of it. I mean, I got to watch some of the other professional athletes or national teams. Like I watched my first water polo game. It was unreal. And then the atmosphere in Toronto, I think we played a 6 p.m. game the one day against Puerto Rico, and it was packed,
Yeah.
right? And then we got to watch the girls play, and they were very competitive. They had very good games, and again, the atmosphere was just insane. And then you get to walk around the village and get all you can eat food, and great time, great time.
Yeah, it was a great experience. It was good to see a lot of Alberta handball players on that in that program, at least, that got to play in it.
Yeah.
You, I mean, I think that was your last major international, like national team tournament, correct?
Yeah, that would have been my last official game.
Yeah, you continued with the program for a year or two later.
After Pan Am Games, I had to take a year off, and then I had leg surgery, and that took me about 6 to 8 months to partially recover from. So then, after my surgery, the nationals after that was my next national team camp. Yeah.
Okay, and then you kind of just faded away from the national team.
No, it again, it just it just came down to money and bad timing. I mean, Alexi was very direct from the beginning that if you can't commit to this team, you won't be on the team, and everyone has to be in 100%. And it came down to a camp at Christmas in France, and I had just graduated college, and the choice was to spend what savings I had without a job. So sacrificing my rent and stuff for 2 3 months to go to France or stay here and try to get a job. And so I had reached out to Alexi and the assistant coach at the time, and they said they thought about it, but I had 6 months to prepare for this moment. And so for me, it was if the ultimatum is that, then I'm not playing.
Yeah. So overall, in your handball experience, what are things that you've seen that have really changed in handball in Alberta and Canada? Um, Good, bad.
Um, well, for guys, it seems to be more competitive over time, right? Like when I had started, Sask wasn't very good. And honestly, we weren't very good compared to Quebec. Um, and then the year Josh gets hurt, Zoran comes back. The senior men go from losing by 20 to winning nationals. And then from there, it was just you kind of saw a little more commitment in the program. And then now we're playing close games with Quebec. We win one year, we lose the next. And then 3 4 years after that, you see Saskatchewan come up with the mustache guy and Brandon Chow and those guys. And they're hell of handball players. And they're going from losing by 15 to losing by 2 or 3. And you have to play to beat them. Uh, Same thing, Manitoba. They show up that one year in juniors, and I think they're in the bronze medal game with the Quebec club, and it was a very close game. So yeah, it just you can see the knowledge is getting there and the skill is getting there. It's just taking that time or doing that extra to compete internationally where we're missing out.
So you think the levels got a lot higher all over the place?
Oh, absolutely. I think not the high school year we just had because of COVID, but the year before that, I remember I was reffing with Dushin, and we both were like, "This is the highest. This has to be the highest overall skill set of high school handball we've ever seen."
Yeah. Not really about Alberta, but more of like all over Canada. Like you
Yeah,
think,
from what I see at nationals, it is getting higher. I'm confident in that. Yeah.
okay, yeah. And you think in Alberta, in the school level and the club level, it's got a lot higher?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially in Sherwood Park, it's they're strong every year, and so.
Um, what are some of the things you see that need to be improved with Canada or Alberta?
For me, the big one is coaching development. I mean, in Alberta, we have some really good coaches. I mean, you're undefeated for the last however many years. It's insane. And then, I mean, you can see there's other good coaches like Josh when he coaches high school, and he is granted he had a family now, but he was always in the finals prior to that. And
Yeah.
but I think outside of those 2 3 maybe 4 special people, it's
You better stay agreeable because
oh, yeah, Kate too. I got you, Kate.
yeah,
Yeah, but Kate's team is in the final for boys and girls every year, right? And what's missing is making it more competitive for everybody. And whether that's getting more people into clubs so they can be coached properly,
yeah.
which I think coaching, we struggle there a little bit too, or just developing our coaches so they understand the game better in high school.
So take away now your player hat. that you were a player, and kind of now you're president of Alberta Team Handball Federation. You're also a coach in the Alberta Provincial Program. Just before this, I did a podcast with Zoran, and we talked a lot about coach and development. The thing that I feel that is huge is that I feel like people think they don't need education in handball for coaches. I feel like a lot of people here, maybe also in Canada, just feel like, why do I have to take a course? I know handball. I find it a very uh, weird mindset because you don't see that in other sports.
No, well, I think it depends at the level. Like for what we do, our league is quite competitive, right? It would be very similar to a top division soccer or AA, AAA hockey. And at that level, the coaches are not like that. But if you go down to the lower levels in league of like soccer and basketball, it's mostly parents who are just volunteering their time, and they are like that. And it's just it's finding that place for everybody. I think the people who aren't interested in taking those coaching levels, I mean, it's fine. Teach the kids the rules, let them have fun. But at one point, you're going to have to kind of look in the mirror and say, am I best for what these kids want?
Yeah. Yeah. But then then you run into the situation is, do you have enough coaches that could coach well enough with the mass growth that we have in schools and clubs that to keep the kids engaged to want to more? Because I'm a huge believer, in my view is, you like me or you hate me, but when you come into a gym, I believe that I can make you stay in that gym because you're learning, you enjoy the practices, you're getting pushed, and then that's where I think we really lack is, can a coach in the club levels and stuff engage those athletes?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's kind of that's that learning curve where we have to find and figure out, like, the coaches who want to coach for fun, is it best to pair them with someone so they learn by accident, right? Or is it, do we force it down their throats and potentially lose that volunteer? I mean, it's not an easy choice either way, but it's kind of one of those things where we need people who want to coach, but we need the coaches to want to be better,
Yeah.
right?
But then you get into like, I'm playing devil's advocate here, yes, but then you get into the situations where in club, a well-coached team is beating another team by 50 goals. So, like, and yes, player, or maybe one team has more talent on their team, more provincial team players, but you should be able to see improvement and that within the players. It shouldn't be you lose by 50, 2 weeks later it's by 60, 3 weeks later it's by 70. You should see some growth in the
Yeah.
in the coaching.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, I'm laughing because those are real scores that we saw this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I mean, even with the coaches involved in my club, like, I tell them, like, we don't aim for perfection. I don't need to win a U13 championship, right? But it's about, did the kids get better throughout the year? And if they didn't, then we did something wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my perspective, and the coaches I work with, I share that a lot with them. But it's just, how do we take that attitude from myself or someone like you and kind of push it into all of our coaches in Alberta?
So, what is, as president, what do you see as a game plan for in the coaching aspect?
I think we have to find a way to create a coaching course. I mean, you do a great job with clinics, but what I think the problem with clinics is that people see it and can't always replicate what you do or have the same understanding that you do. Because even sometimes when you talk to me, and I mean, I've dedicated what little bit of the life I've lived to the sport. You're so far beyond. It's sometimes it's overwhelming, and I think the coaching courses we need to teach give them the base knowledge so they can create or coach their own way to get to those levels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I think issue is players that become coaches or both, they go to practice, they see drills. Oh, this is a great drill, and they just run the same kind of practice with people. And sometimes some people, players don't understand that there's reasonings behind these drills. What are you supposed to look at? What do you need to do? So, like, to me, it's not always about the the craziness of like drills with 3 balls or whatever it is. It's what that group needs and how to make it enjoyable and how they can learn from it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the perfect example is you have Wilson and Kenneth's generation versus Lily and Dawn. And I had to coach them very different than you coach that group of players. They could never be coached the same way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, as a president, is it about rebuilding or like trying to build a whole new coaching certification program?
Yeah, I think we definitely got to start from scratch. I think 3 years you presented, what was it?
The
Not the
coaches
TAS program.
development pathway.
Yeah, and I thought that was a good idea. It didn't cling on, right? And then last year we tried doing the coaching clinics with different categories, and that didn't cling on. So I think, I mean, the board will have to work out a solution, but in my mind, it's something that creates a little more freedom. Like, this is the basics, this is what you're looking for, and then we say, okay, you run this practice for 15 minutes, and then we'll give you feedback on maybe not like this is how I would have done the drill, because my perspective and I mean yours is going to be something that might be advanced for an average coach or a new beginner coach. But the feedback, like, hey, if you're really focusing on their arms, make sure their arm is here, or if you do this, it's going to make them pass more and things like that. So that way they can understand to create their own drills. Because I think for me, what I like about coaching is all my drills I make up for myself. I don't have like a scrapbook of practice plans where I go and take pieces here and here. I go, okay, I need to work on this, and my first warm up game starts with that. And then we go into passing drills or whatever. And again, I still try to incorporate all those things, and I just expand throughout the practice.
Okay. Um, what are some of your other objectives as president with Alberta Team Handball?
Um, I think the first one, and I think we've really made a good stride to it, is kind of taking care of our employee. I mean, uh, you work 70 hours a week sometimes, and for me, it's okay. I mean, why wouldn't I want you to work 70-hour week? You do a good job. But we're also at a point where we're so fragile that if you got your dream job in Germany, we'd be screwed. Right. So we really just need to kind of create that concrete where if you leave, I can go, okay, let's hire somebody else at a pretty like fair wage coming out of college. And this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it's not going to be, they don't have to be a handball knowledge, but they have to be able to event plan and coordinate a million different things and want to excel.
Yeah. And so staff, any other ideas with Alberta Handball?
After that, I would really like to find a way to grow in the South. I mean, I know we've been working on it for a long time, but the way I think about it is Edmonton is so successful at what we do, or Edmonton and area,
Yeah.
because we have the North quite well. And to me, if you can get Calgary and replicate the same thing, it's just going to be better for our provincial team players and our clubs and all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with it. I just think the South is very, very tough as it's you're dealing with a lot of sports at the same time in like the ASAA, which in this like baseball and basketball, which are massive in the South, affect the season of play, which has been super hard to get into it.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I mean, I know it's not easy, and like I said, we've been working on it for years, but it's just one of those battles we got to keep pushing
Yeah,
because once we get Calgary, I mean, we've said it a million times. Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto, they're all international cities. If you are, if you're out there, you're going to get people just because it's Europeans who know handball.
yeah,
And from there, it'd be easier to expand. It's just we got to keep pushing, we got to keep working, and find a way to work with some people down there who care about handball.
Care about handball, the overall handball. Yeah, I agree with that. What about a referee certification or other things with Alberta handball?
I think in referee certification, I mean, I believe our refs do a good job, and when we have high-level refs and we send them to nationals, it seems like Ward really likes them. Um, what I would like to see is our refs being certified by Team Canada. I mean, to me, they're the ones who should be hosting the reffing clinics and things like that. That way, someone certified here is the same as in Saskatchewan or Quebec and Manitoba. Like, we're all in the same field as certification. But right now, it's like, I mean, we went to nationals in New Brunswick in 2013, and overall, the reffing was not very strong. Where we go to Quebec, you get 2, 3 really good pairs. You have some guys who've reffed international games, and then you get a ref set from Vancouver, and you're like, when was the last time you reffed a game? 1972? Yeah, it's the inconsistency is frustrating. But I mean, in terms of Alberta, I think that the other thing I'd really like to see is a big growth in our leagues. I mean, we're at a point where we do a really good job of getting players out of high school into our elite program, but we're really building our league out of that, and that's a group of maybe 40 kids. However, if we can expand our league, right now you're going from 40 kids to maybe 100, 120 kids because each club is taking 10 to 20 kids.
Yeah, and I think that's the big next step is like more of like club working with the clubs and building the clubs more, which again goes back to coaching, which goes back to everything to build more clubs. And I think the competitive within clubs, like Mark from Short Park Handball Club and I had a big discussion. It's better to have 2 clubs in Short Park because then each club has to work harder to get those players.
Yeah.
Like it's the club should not just have the rights to right now a lot in the zones. If you've been with a club, it's you have the right to that player. But if you have 2 clubs in that area, if that player is allowed to play on the team they want, it's going to push for the clubs to want to do more and to give more and to have better coaches.
Yeah, and I think a good example of that is Noah last year. What he did with the Avengers U13 girls is he took 8 girls and he made them love it, and they all want to come back. And again, right, like you don't have to be the best handball player in your first year, especially coming out of club, but you have to learn it and then you have to like it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And I think all those girls registered. They were in the U16 league, but it just got postponed.
Most of them registered. The only ones who didn't register, they were already in soccer, so just due to cohorts and COVID. But other than that, I think they all would have played because they all responded right away.
And 1 or 2 are like 10 years old.
Yeah. So we're just waiting for the U13 league and to get our superstars back.
Yeah, exactly. A lot about what you talked about. I think this is a big issue we have, going forward with Alberta Team Handball Federation is the coaching development, the referee development. But that should already be in place. There should be a national governing coach certification program and referee program. There is the NCCP. I'm not sure what it's called now, but the problem is we have no access to be able to certify our coaches. Or if we want, we got to bring in someone and pay them $4,000 or $5,000 for a weekend, which nobody is going to pay $400 or $500 for a weekend coaching course. I mean, yes, you have to pay, but a level 1 NCCP coach, which is community, people are not going to pay $500. I understand when you get to the higher levels and you want to be a provincial coach, yeah, it's going to cost money, but we have that issue. We have no, like you said, when you go to national championships, but even though there's some good refs out east in Quebec, their reffing style is so different than ours. So when we play them and they have Alberta refs, they say it's biased, or we say when it's a Quebec ref, it's biased, but it's the style of play is so different, and there's no one way of reffing, uh, the philosophy of reffing in Canada.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, so, like, I mean, I think our national governing body is a huge issue right now with their development of handball in Canada. You know, the resources of coaching certifications, referee certification. Do you kind of agree with that?
I 1,000,000% agree with that. I mean, I've said it a million times. I've been a provincial team coach for 6 years, and I don't have my level one. Not only do I not have it, I can't get it. And then now I'm being fined for coaching at nationals for not having it. And so to me, it's a little ridiculous given the fact that I haven't had the opportunity to get it from the governing body that wants to fine me for it.
Yeah.
So it's silly. And then when you look at it, I mean, for Alberta Team Handball, we tried to push players to get some kind of certification this year, and some of the coaches wanted to get their NCCP level one, and they did all the other work, but you can't do the rest because CTHF hasn't done anything,
Yeah.
right?
The
So
thing
it's
is, it is done, but the problem is they just selected people in certain areas and no one from the West. So they have one or two people from Quebec and one person from Manitoba. But the issue is, instead of spreading out who uh, who can coach it or teach it, they put it all in one place. But now you have to fly that person out, which you can't because of COVID. You have to pay them that. You got to pay them per diems. You got to pay them hotel. You got to pay them flight. Uh, so it ends up being a $4,000 or $5,000 weekend.
yeah,
While in a certain province, they just pay him $100 for the day to run the course.
yeah. Well, even outside of that, I mean, when we do those coaching clinics, we force our provincial team athletes to go. Are all of them going to be coaches? No, probably not. Are they all going to be refs? No, probably not. But the people who don't know if they like it yet and they miss it at the beginning of the year, then that's it, right? You have a parent who wants to coach. They're not going to commit to a level one coaching course within 2 weeks of them knowing handball. But I mean, 6 months later, they might. And when we have to operate like that, you're not appealing to the masses. And if you don't appeal to the masses, you can't expand. So it's
And I think that's where, like, you see what's happening with handball in Canada. I mean, again, we're from here, so obviously we're proud of what we've done. But you look at the younger ages. Our girls in our girls' side. I mean, we haven't seen Quebec at a young age at a national championships in like 4 years. I think the last time we saw Quebec was when Alberta beat them in. Where was the last time you won nationals with Quebec? Wasn't it in Winnipeg?
um yeah, yeah, in Winnipeg.
2016, no, 15, 16. No,
2013 was with you. You coached us 2014.
2015, 26, 15 or
2014
16,
I coached with you. 2015 I coached on my own. So
2016.
2016, yeah.
So last time we saw, so it's hard to say, but on the girls' side, they've come, and I think the closest we've seen is 42 to 16 or something like that. That, like, the development in the provinces of coaches hasn't been too strong, and it's not being pushed by the national governing body. So unless you have a Melissa Locke in Saskatchewan who loves coaching and does everything she can to become a better coach, you know, then you see the Saskatchewan program getting better because you have a crazy person like that who's willing to do a lot on her own. But as a national governing body, they're not giving the resources to other places, BC, Ontario, Manitoba, enough resources where you're seeing any kind of development in those provinces.
Yeah, yeah, and that's absolutely true. I mean, at the last AGM, I had asked the smaller provinces, why does no one come to nationals? Manitoba told me we can't get players out of high school to provincial team. Um, New Brunswick said we only run mini handball, we don't have anything. BC said, we just kind of do to our own thing and we don't want to spend the money to get killed. And I mean, to me, nationals is supposed to be the best of the best. It's supposed to be very exciting. And I'd rather win nationals by 1 or 2 than win nationals by 30. I mean, unless you beat PSG by 30, then it's a different story, right? But I want it to be exciting. I want to play in those games where every goal matters and every yellow card or every 2 minute your coach is like, what are you doing? It's going to hurt us. And I don't think it's a lack of effort from the other provinces. I just think there's no support and there's no like, this is how. Let me show you how. Let me guide you. Let me support you, right? Like, I mean, my coaching philosophy is number one is individuals, right? Or I mean, outside of the rules of the games, but it's individuals first, and without that, you can't do anything. But then you go to other provinces and they're running plays first. And I'm not going to say my way is better versus another way, but again, it's that inconsistency you talk about, and CTHF should have something that says this is how we suggest to develop. Here's some beginner drills to develop.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So, I mean, now getting into a little bit of stuff is there was AGM a couple of weeks ago, which got postponed from September due to not enough provinces being able to participate, which I believe there was them trying to find a solution of getting their votes to be able to stay on, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. In the AGM, which is in their bylaws, is allowed to be in, not allowed to participate in the conversations, but allowed to listen. They made it a very closed door meeting. They put Saskatchewan into bad standings due to them having the check for affiliation, but they didn't cash it yet, which Saskatchewan did write to him saying that we're having trouble financially due to COVID, but seems like CTHF knew that they might not get their vote, so they put in bad standings, which I would still love to see BC and New Brunswick, if they paid on time, which other provinces like those the years prior did not pay on time and still got to have votes. So I found that really iffy. Listening in from like your phone into you, I find they made it clear that I wasn't allowed personally into the meeting, but they also may have made sure that when you listen to that meeting, the votes were already set. They already had backdoor deals with certain provinces. I mean, a big thing I would like to say is the national senior coaches from BC, who has no experiences, who our team beat that team by I think 57-7 with where we played mostly our 17 and 18-year-olds. No development in BC. It's just someone that will bow down to the CTHF and is the president's best friend.
I love the controversy.
Well, it's mind-boggling. The women's coach, I mean, they admitted that they fired me because they didn't like me because I wouldn't do what they wanted to do. Then they get someone that they wanted, but then she stood up for herself, so they got rid of her. And so anyone that's good within the program that has their own ideas, they just get rid of. I mean, you look at the national team program right now, it's nothing. So I don't know if you want to just talk a little bit about what your thoughts were of the AGM, the issues that Alberta Handball is having with them.
Well, the first thing I want to say is 4 years ago, Canada, USA, there's no contest. Our numbers are bigger, our players are higher level, and not taken away from USA. If you look at what they've done since they started that program in Auburn, they're killing it. They have great coach. They have players from all over Europe. Their players who aren't European from USA are now playing in Europe. They're developing the right way.
Yeah.
But you see USA going like this, well, we're going like this. And I mean, it's easy to say, well, the provinces don't do this, the provinces don't do that. But if you're the governing body, it's like your parents. Like, would your parents let you skip school to, get drunk? Probably not. And CTHF, they only care about their individual goals. I don't know what it is, but it's it's not in the best interest of the athletes or for the sport in the country. And I mean, there's a million stories about things they've done wrong to me personally, or seen to the federation, or I mean, other players across the country, and or even taking players on a national team due to politics. I mean, it's a national team. Merit should always be right, and it's the same thing when you're hiring coaches. I mean, uh, like letting you go is one thing, and then you hire a coach that no one knows from BC and what's his credentials. And I mean, I was turned down to coach a national team one time because I don't have my level 2, but how can I get it? And it's it's a little frustrating. I think with in every aspect I've ever dealt with CTHF, the number one problem is transparency. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Where's the money going? What's the point? Right? Like the treasurer who just left the board, he questions why why the new rule got put in that made him have to leave the board, which is, I mean, who cares? I mean, for him, honestly, it's better he's not on it. He's a really good guy, and
Yeah.
I don't really want him to get caught up in any drama with the provinces, especially he's someone who still enjoys playing national team. But when you look at things like that, or when you email them and I'm on it, they don't reply. And then a week later, I have to go, guys, this is unprofessional. You can't just ignore us because you feel like it. And then they reply. Or I have to speak on behalf of you just to get them to reply because they don't like you. That's not good business, and it's not good for handball.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you look at the national teams, a perfect example when you compare USA to Canada. Right now, I know how a selection's happening in the USA because they put it up of how the selection process is. Right now in Canada, for Alberta handball, to know anything that's going on with national team, you got to ask someone that's on a hidden Facebook page, which it's confusing, but it's not an open tryout. There's no coaches showing, knowing who the players are. I mean, the national coach wrote on that page saying, "Hey, I know that no one is training because of COVID, but we've been playing handball since May 12th."
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, even when they asked me to come back, it was an email saying, "I heard you're an incredible player. We want you back." And I'm like, "I don't know you. You don't know me. You've never seen me play."
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's no, like you said, transparency. There's no selection process. There's no way uh, no way of a proper selection. How they hire the coaches. I mean, that's just there. But I mean, when you talk about the organization and uh, when you look at what happened at the AGM and board members, highly qualified business people who would have done wonders for the federation, they made sure not to let them on the board, not for it's for hidden agendas because they would have been questioned on things. And
Yeah.
and to me it's mind-boggling, and it's something like, for me that I don't want to be a part of, and I know you would the same. It was the most silliest thing. You have a province like Saskatchewan, other than Alberta, are the only people that go to all the national championships.
Yeah.
And they've made every effort to do everything they can without the support of CTHF. And to tell them they're not allowed in that meeting was mind boggling. And you just knew that it was all shady and all behind the scenes things that were done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a million examples in that meeting, and I spoke in favor of Saskatchewan, and all the provinces voted against me. And
Yeah.
what can you do if that's how everyone feels? That's how everyone feels. But at least that one felt like a fair vote. When we get into everything else, I mean, if anyone knows me, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of players who could say Tyrell's a dick on the court or whatever they feel.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just a competitive guy. And of course, I want to win, but I don't mind losing. But if I lose, it has to be the right way. If I lose by 2 because the ref didn't feel like calling any 2 minutes on my team, I'm going to be upset. And that's how the AGM felt. I mean, if it was, you have someone pop up magically nominated within 30 seconds of the vote, and oh no, it's allowed, it's in the bylaws. Okay, great, it is in the bylaws. But how is it that he has a written speech that he read verbatim to the board? Well, no one else running for any position was allowed to present their half. And Alexei, who's running for president, tried to set up a meeting with the presidents of all the provinces and was told not to do it by his president. So, I mean, that's suspect. It's it might not be illegal, it might be in the bylaws, but it's, to me, it's very unethical and it's not professional.
Well, a perfect example is we had someone from here that was applying for a position, and I think they were missing their picture, and they were told they were not, or a sheet, one of the sheets, and they were not allowed to be nominated.
Yeah, he was missing his letter of intent, and again, it's, I mean, okay, our bad, we missed the sheet.
Yep.
However, I sent that to you 5 weeks ago,
Yep.
and you tell me the day before the AGM that he's not allowed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, where's the professionalism? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure there's lawsuits that happen because of that in the corporate world, and it's a shame that we can't hold these people accountable.
And like you say, bylaws, I agree with them, but the bylaws, a lot of them in that AGM, bylaws that it is open, that they didn't allow anybody into the meeting because they knew they were going to get questioned. You know, like bylaws of how Saskatchewan wasn't allowed in, many things. You know, they just kind of pick and choose what they want to, how they want to do things.
Yeah.
What are, as president and overseeing Alberta Handball right now, and you being in position, I think the day, March 14th, I think it was, the day of COVID, the lockdown, is we had our AGM that morning.
Yeah.
Before the lockdown. I think we were in the meeting when the lockdown started. And now here, what is your position as president in going forward with Canada Handball? What are things you want to see change before, you know, we support the way that it's run?
For me, it's first of all the people involved. I mean, people can change, but I think all those people as a group, it won't change because they all have the same agenda. I mean, you get 2 or 3 fresh faces in there who want to do the right thing. Maybe there's a ringleader, right? It could be one person with a negative influence and whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not a fan of everyone on the board for many reasons, but I think once I see change there, that's a start. After that, it's again providing those resources. Like, to me, every province should get 2 coaching clinics a year and 2 reffing clinics a year and national team tryouts. I mean, I understand not anyone can try out for the national team. However, to try out for the national team, you need to be training X amount of hours, or we select a list from national championships or whatever it is. Exceptions might be for European players. Things like that, but without processes and basically everything a nonprofit organization should have.
Yeah.
And again, that clear transparency, like in the AGM, I abstained from all the minutes regarding money. And I mean, I don't know if money's being stolen or not, but whatever it is, I don't want to be affiliated with it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, again, that transparency. Like, I remember playing national team and we'd get budgets and everything was $100, $200, $300. Like, what? Pins are $300 even? There's no GST, no nothing? Like, yeah. And then the last thing is, I mean, when you talk to parents, and for the last 3 years, not every parent, but majority of our Alberta parents who have sent their kids on these trips have come to me with complaints. Whether it's, some of the kids are saying they got to go on this trip for free while we paid $3,500, or my son didn't know where he was sleeping, or some guy started screaming at my daughter in an elevator. Like, all of these stupid little things. And again, you can't control everybody. I understand that, but doing nothing is not okay. That's a choice as well.
Yeah. So you're saying pretty much like the professionalism right now with CTHF is just not there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I mean, you almost need a restart. You need someone to go in and clean up all the accounting and all the books. Like I told the executive director of CTHF when I was arguing with him about the money they owed you. And I said, if your accounting process was correct, you would have caught this when it happened, not 3 years later, based off of invoices we have to email you. Right? Yeah, things like that. And like, again, great. They ask for resumes they ask for coaching resumes. But why is the coach hired? What was the criteria? Now you're selecting a national team.
But
I
the
mean,
but I don't even know about this coach. He never even applied. If you recall, the coach, who was the coach? The coach was from Denmark. He resigned, and they needed someone. So they heard about Zoran. They've never met Zoran, so they call Zoran and say, "Hey, you want to be coach?" And then Zoran calls me and says, "Hey, the only way I'll do it is with you." And then I kind of say no because they kind of screwed me over once again with the youth national team. So I said I'm not coaching anymore. And then all of a sudden, there's a guy from BC that's coaching.
yeah,
And so again, there was still to this day we have no clue about this coach. All he said in a letter on the private Facebook page is that he's done big things in BC.
yeah, with 40 members. That's fantastic. But I
Yeah,
mean, and then you go to nationals. They say they have a process, but no one knows how it's selected. It just seems to be given to whoever is convenient at the time. I mean, with USA, all these facilities bid on it, and
yeah,
then they decide, right? And it's something everyone understands and everyone follows. Not everyone has to agree. I mean, it's politics. You're never going to get 100% of people to agree,
yeah.
but you have to be able to explain your decision, and sometimes you're going to have to justify it. But
And then now, I mean, they want to put in a membership fee to any athlete that's part of like there, which I understand that it is important to for the federation to survive and to make money. Like no problem having a membership fee, but the problem is we look at it and say you want us to add $15 per athlete to their membership fees already to give to CTHF, but for what?
yeah, it's like paying $100 for a 5-cent candy. Would you do that?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
wouldn't. Right?
That's the problem. Is like like we say, well, what are they getting for this? Well, we need money.
Yeah,
Okay, well, that's not how it's done.
exactly.
And then going to the president, just before the elections for presidents, you asked him, "What is uh, the goals of Canada Handball?" Is that what you said?
Yeah, so on his presentation, he said, okay, we're voting for president now. And within the description of the job, it said to fulfill the mission statement of CTHF, blah, 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 a bunch of other stuff. And so I interrupted and I said, David, I had heard about from Alexi, and I know what he wants to do and where he wants to take this or the organization and some of his hopes, but I haven't heard from you. So do you mind telling me what CTHF's current mission statement is? And it was honestly like 30, 45 seconds of silence. And then he starts telling me what a mission statement is. I mean, okay, not everybody knows, but I went to college for business. I know what a mission statement is. Most people do without going to college. So again, I interrupted him. I said, David, I understand what a mission statement is. I want to know what yours is or what CTHF's is. And again, he paused. And I mean, I don't know, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was along the lines of our mission statement is to grow the sport in Canada with numbers and level of players. This also includes high level reffing and better coaching. And, we also want to remember that we have strong relationships with other federations and overseas. And he just rambled on like that for a minute, 2 minutes. And yeah, I mean, as soon as that happened, he lost my vote right away.
And the thing is, I think if anyone from Canada Handball listens to this, I recommend them. it was on Zoom, so it's recorded. I recommend them to put out on their website the AGM and to really show what the AGM was about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would never happen, but I would agree with that. I would like to see the responses of the members. And like I said, I'm a very straightforward guy, and nothing about that meeting was straightforward.
So where does ATHF stand right now with Canada Handball?
Um, so I guess this is the first time the public's going to hear about it, but within a couple days, we'll no longer be affiliated with CTHF. I mean, I left the AGM meeting quite upset, and I said we were going to leave. That was just my feelings, though. However, when I presented it to the board, it was a unanimous decision. Not one person agreed we should stay. And our board consists of a few, I guess, 2 athletes, a couple parents, and one person who played provincial team for a long time.
Well, you have a parent that's kid has wanted to be on the national team, but like the organization, you have the secretary who's a national team player, you have a next national team player, uh,
Yeah.
you have a director at large that still wants to be a part of the national team. So you have myself that's been a coach with the national team for quite a while. So there's
Yeah,
quite a
and
bit.
then you have, and then our director of volunteer. I mean, very smart business lady, and her kids also involved. But I mean, again, it comes from a lot of different perspectives. So it's not like a biased decision. Everyone wants out, and I mean, unlike Quebec's president, sometimes you should do what's best for your members or give them what they want.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're out. I mean, I've typed up my letter, and according to their bylaws, I need a physical copy. So I'll be putting that in the mail on my way to work tomorrow for Mr. LeBeau. And after that, I mean, nothing they do really helps or stops our operating. We're going to continue to give our athletes camps and make sure they're national team ready. And I mean, if any athlete is worried, I'll handle all complaints, no problem. But I just want them to remember that we develop the best players in the country. We give the most opportunities, and we're going to continue to do that with or without CTHF.
And to be clear, because I know that many people are going to say, well, now I can't play national team. To be clear, this has nothing to do with you, any athlete from Alberta, to be able to play on the national team. Number one, there's many players that are in Europe that play that are not affiliated with the provinces that are allowed to play. You probably have to pay a membership fee to Canada Handball, which everyone's going to have to do. So that, I mean, all the national team tryouts and everything should be online. It shouldn't be on a hidden Facebook page. So, I mean, it should be open to the public. And if there's issues with that, then Sports Canada needs to get involved with how it's selecting, which is available. You're more than welcome to contact the athlete's rep for Canada Handball, which is Lyndon Savanto. I'm not sure who else it is. It does not affect any athlete wanting to be on the national team. And to be clear, on our side, we want our players to reach the highest level, and that's not going to take away from any provincial team training athletes to make the national team. We still have our TAS program, which is dedicated for people to better themselves individually to be on a national team. This is more from, we want to see change as an organization. And when we look at it, we do not see anything we get out of it except headaches, national championships. I mean, there's no benefit in going to national championships because you never know who's showing up to national championships anymore. I mean, 2 years ago, there was 2 Alberta teams and a Saskatchewan team.
Yeah.
And then from that, the team from Quebec represented Canada at the IHF Challenge Cup, which we hardly knew about. So we didn't not know much about. So which the CTHF says, Quebec, go to that and don't worry about national championships.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think you said it best, and it's the players. You must know that you still have those opportunities, but again, playing devil's advocate here is those opportunities aren't always the best for you right now. And I know I had a few long talks with some of the players that I had coached that if you want to spend $4,000, I will take 2 weeks off and we'll go to Europe, and you will get way more out of your money for it than you will on the national team right now. Because, I mean, for juniors, it's a 2-year cycle. The IHF runs a 2-year cycle, and we haven't gone to anything in 4 years. How is that possible?
Yeah.
Right. So,
I mean, that and I mean, there was some good coaches, but the problem is the CTHF got rid of those good coaches. So,
speaking of
Coach,
which, I'm waiting for my offer. I've lost 2 games at nationals in 6 years, and I still haven't got an offer.
yeah. I don't think after this you'll get an offer.
No, that's okay. But I mean, I don't really actually want to be the coach. I don't have the time for it. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of coaches on there that I've beaten by 20 or 30 and just want a chance.
Yeah. So the big thing is we will make sure that our athletes still have every opportunity to be on the national team. We just want to see a change. And right now, anything we've requested, anything that we tried to do, they just kind of throw out. We said we had parents that were at the World Championships for juniors a couple of years ago, and they came back and said, we're not going to complain. We want to see change. And so they tried to get on the board and they were refused to be on the board. So we, as a federation, we need to stand up for our athletes. We need to see change, and we'll make sure that our athletes have every opportunity for, like we talked about, coaching education, which is a big thing right now on our plate. That we are working on, and referee certification, which we started a program this year about videos of the referees, evaluation of the referees. So we're working on a lot of that kind of stuff to build our own, because we cannot just keep on waiting for Canada team handball opportunities.
No, no. Like I've told some of the parents, I've been on the national team since I was 18 years old. So 12 years and nothing. There's been no change.
So if an athlete has concerns about it, how should they go by maybe asking questions about it?
Um, well, we have a complaint process or a feedback process. So, I mean, if you have any generic questions, feel free to email info at Alberta Team Handball.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first step. And if you're unsatisfied with that, I mean, you can definitely escalate it, and you can reach out to volunteer at Alberta Team Handball or myself directly. I mean, this is something that I kind of initiated, and I'll own it. So, I mean, if anyone wants to sit down and have a talk, I can make myself available before any practice, or we can set up a Zoom call with the athletes. And for those of you who are uncomfortable approaching me in such a way, you can always reach out to Cassidy Hartwick. She's our player rep for the provincial team, or Dushan Kristic. I hope I said that right, for the boys, right? So he's also the athlete rep, and both of them are super big-hearted people who aren't afraid to talk to me. So
Yeah, I agree. So anyways, like as a staff member, I've seen big changes in the last 6 months. I mean, I think you said it perfectly, was kind of everything was redone for my contract. So we've signed a new contract with ATHF with a lot of new guidelines and a lot of more support. On the board, we're getting the right people in place. There's a lot of positivity, and I think what people haven't seen is that since May 12th, we started handball again. We were the first sport to get back going. We've run a whole 19 and under league. The senior league was third weekend, sorry. We had 16 under that was just starting. We've live streamed most games. Provincial teams have restarted with not one case of COVID. And that's the work of all our athletes, all our coaches, all the clubs that have followed our guidelines. That's from athletes knowing if they had the sniffles, they stayed home. A perfect example is a club that you play for, right? Before the season, a player's like, I don't feel well, I'm not coming. And he ended up with COVID, which we never saw him, but that was the right thing to do. So I think we have people that are respecting the guidelines that we put in place, that are following. And just to say that a lot of sports have gone down in numbers this year, we're actually up in numbers from league from last year. So it's been quite an impressive run. And like our coaching is getting better. I think all the programs are getting better. We're continue to do things. We just need the world to open up again, and then we'll be back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, someone from grade 8, when I started coaching him, non-committed, just half showed up. Remembers you showing up. You still say this, it wasn't you, but I still remember you at a provincial team practice, you coming in with your football team.
No, guaranteed that was Kevin Francis.
That was you.
No, I would. If I was there, I would stay because I had a better chance of getting a ride home from you than taking the bus back to the West End.
Exactly. So I mean,
before this wraps up, I just want to point out that my golden boy this year is Blaze. It's not Cole, and my favorite team to coach was Team Dakota. So I know, Wilson, that meant a lot to you. So I don't want you crying about not getting a shout out.
Yeah. Maybe we'll finish off with this. You've coached 2 generations.
Yeah, 2.5, maybe 3.
Twofold. You've had the Craig generation.
Yeah, but then you add the Jarrett and David generation, even though there was only 4.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And then you have the Dakota Wilson generation.
And then now we have the new guys. Yeah.
You just started with them, but
yeah.
Okay. First question: most talented T group. Not the best right now because it's hard to say, but the ones that you, when you were coaching, had the most potential.
I think, given different circumstances, assuming all teams had the same work ethic and did as much as the other teams, I think it was Jarrett Zielinski, David Jingles, and Noah Nadell.
Who else was in that generation?
You had Aloysius, Noah, Kyle, the soccer player who went to BC. I mean, they didn't live up to the hype, but I think they could have been something special. I mean, the ones who stayed were very good. Very good.
You think that Noah's part of that generation?
Oh, I guess he was after them.
He never went to nationals with them.
Yeah, he came after. But I think that group, in terms of athleticism and what they mentally brought to the game, I mean, if they had trained as much and had the same start to handball as Craig and those guys did, I think they would have been better than them. But I mean, go ahead.
One player that you saw that maybe when they started you didn't see the potential compared to now they've become a great handball player.
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, the first person that comes to my mind is Wilson, but I mean, I recruited him, so I did see something in him. Maybe it wasn't talent, it was just pure passion, and what he did with passion alone is incredible, because I mean, when he first started, the guy couldn't jump and shoot without falling on his face.
You're going to get a happy person and a really upset person from that.
Yeah, I know Kenneth is going to be pretty upset, but I mean, Kenneth does what he does now the same as he did back then. He just puts the ball in the net. Yeah. He's fading away from the one hole and he scores top corner high. And you're like, how? No one should score that, but you did.
Hardest working player you've ever coached?
Ooh. Craig Fisher.
Back in his time.
Yeah, in his prime, 18-year-old, 19-year-old Craig was a machine.
Yeah.
He went to every extra practice. He worked out. He literally lost 10 pounds of sweat every practice, and no one wanted it more than he did.
Yeah, I agree. Um, best as a player, best teammate.
It depends. If I'm looking for someone to back me up in a scrap, I'm taking my boy Daryl Lacusta.
Okay, so let's go best teammate, uh, best player you played with, and like the best player you played with, and then best teammate, someone with like the overall morale, to bring the team up, like a leader, and then the funnest teammate.
Ooh. Okay, so I think the best player I've ever played with was Alexi
No, from Alberta.
from Alberta. Ooh. I think it's Zorn, and he was like 45 at the time.
Yeah,
It was insane. He scored 10 goals a game. He was throwing me no look alley oops. It was unreal.
yeah.
Um, I think the funniest guy. There's so many groups in every group. Like I don't know, Alberta Handball. They're very silly people, but I think Kelly Mears is up there. He was a
Really?
youngster. Oh yeah, he did some questionable things on the court, but the first person laughing about it in the locker room was Kelly. No matter what temper tantrum you saw on the court or what nasty thing he said to the ref, we'd be in the locker room and it was all fun and
That's a
games.
good point. And best leader, teammate.
Uh, See, that one's tough. I think for me individually, who led me the most was Dan Devlin.
Okay.
Um, but when I look at Lyndon Savanto, no matter what team he's on, he's always brought everyone around him. Like I said, like Dan meant a lot to me personally. Uh, Me and Lyndon were best friends, not best friends, and it's a little different. But I can't take away what he did with every generation he's ever played on, and everyone loves playing with him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, that's true. That's good. Good points. Well, now everyone will know the truth about who your favorite player or player you coach, Wilson.
Yeah, and Blaze, don't worry, you could be 5 minutes late. We'll only run if Cole's late.
Uh, that's funny. Well, thank you for doing this. Hopefully that we have support from our players and athletes and parents, and understanding what we're doing is for the betterment of the sport, and understand that we hope that this brings on change where we can come back and support Canada handball. But we've tried for 5, 6, 7 years now, threatening, and nothing has ever changed.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So
so, well, thank you
we
for
know
doing
that we have
this.
your best interest, and other than that, thanks for your time, Mike.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye.